Meanwhile, Russia's President Vladimir Putin discussed the Ukraine conflict in a phone call with President Cyril Ramaphosa, according to the Kremlin today. The call comes ahead of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's working visit to South Africa this week. And let's speak about this further now. We speak to Professor Stephen Chan from the School of Oriental and African Studies at the University of London. Prof, good evening to you and thank you so much for your time. Let's start with the significance of this visit this week.
Well, it is significant. The Ukrainians had previously not had very much active diplomacy with regard to Africa. I advised them, in fact, at the beginning of the war, they needed to reach out to Africa. It's taken all this time, but now it seems that it's sunken into them. They have to do this at high level. Thus, the president himself is coming to South Africa at a moment when relationships with the United States are quite volatile. Many mixed signals coming out of Washington. So Zelenskyy will be hoping to build and cement diplomatic ties for the benefit of Ukraine's campaign for a peaceful end to the war.
I'm going to get to the issues around the U.S. in just a moment, but I want to stay with something that you said that, you have been saying, and I've been hearing you in some interviews, that they need to look towards Africa. And we saw at some point when African leaders went to Ukraine, the reception wasn't just as great. And I wonder, what is your reading now as to how things have progressed? Is there a change in tone, perhaps?
There's been a slow learning curve. Don't forget, when the war began, Ukraine had only a handful of embassies in Africa. They weren't interested in Africa. It didn't come into their whole view of international relations. Now they realize they must have as many allies from all parts of the world as possible. So the president is taking a lead here. And because he's the president, this is quite significant. He'll reach out to South Africa, to the South African president, and try to persuade South Africa to play a role in mediation and building peace talks. They're doing all the things that seem very, very difficult at this moment in time.
There is a view that this visit could place South Africa at the center of diplomatic tensions between Europe and the United States, given the conflicting views on what's taking place there and even some of the developments in the U.S. What's your take?
Basically, the United States is lashing out at everyone right now. It's not just South Africa. But yes, Ramaphosa has got to be very, very careful in what he says in public to President Zelenskyy. He can't afford to have South African relationships with America further damaged. At the same time, he can't be critical of Russia, even though Russia is the aggressive partner in the Ukraine conflict, because he needs Russian alliances as well to withstand what America is doing to South Africa. So it's going to be a tightrope on both sides. There's going to be a test of diplomatic maturity and skills for both South Africa and for Ukraine.
And when you talk about this diplomatic tightrope, we're seeing some reports today suggesting that U.S. President Donald Trump is talking about the fact that he may have to take a pass on brokering further, talks between the two countries, that is Russia and Ukraine, should one of them or even both continue to make things difficult. Now, you're looking at South Africa, of course, that also says that this is an ongoing engagement expected to provide a path to peace between the two countries. How successful could this be if you now are seeing a U.S. that's saying potentially they may have to pass if both countries continue to make things difficult?
The U.S. will find it difficult to pull out of trying to at least negotiate the possibility of peace talks. This doesn't mean that they'll withdraw all military assistance, and Europe is quite determined to persevere with military assistance. There's a very great deal, the majority of the Western alliance wants to have some kind of resistance to aggression, but at the same time push for peace talks. So it's very, very important that South Africa allies itself with the need for peace talks. It wants to project itself as some kind of honest broker with an objective voice who stands to gain nothing from what happens in the conflict one way or the other, but who, as a country dedicated to principle, wants very much to lend its stand on principle to this difficult conflict.
And I suppose even from both sides, there could be fatigue as well, looking at how long this conflict has taken.
There's definitely fatigue. There's a lot of battle fatigue, certainly on both sides. The Ukrainians got to a point of near exhaustion on some parts of the front. And Russia has been bulking up with frontline soldiers with people from overseas. Even some Chinese soldiers and students are fighting on the side of the Russians right now. And there is a battle fatigue settling in, and also a mental fatigue on the part of the citizen body. How much longer do we have to put up with attacks, put up with shortages, etc.? But I don't think we've gotten to the stage yet, anywhere near the stage yet, where battle fatigue and other fatigue will force the leaders to talk seriously. This is a long way to go before we reach that point. And it's during this long period that world leaders need to say that we, as world leaders, would like to see a serious attempt to come to peace talks.
So I suppose then, listening to what you're saying, those who are trying to get into this space, be it South Africa, be it the US and any other country that may want to get involved here to try and broker peace, they must be in it for the long haul and certainly not expect an easy solution here.
Absolutely. President Trump betrayed his naivety in thinking that he could swing a deal in a day or two. This thing has got a long, long life because of a long history. And we've got two very complicated countries led by two very, very complicated men. We can't forget that the complexity of this goes back many, many, many years and cannot just be solved by a snap of the fingers. So yes, you're completely correct. Whoever gets involved in this has got to be able to put their shoulder behind the wheel for the long haul.
And especially if we're still hearing about the fact that territories are also a huge part of the sticking point here as well. Prof, thank you so much. Always a pleasure to chat to you. That's Professor Stephen Chan there from the School of Oriental and African Studies at the University of London.